For centuries, stories of giants have towered over human imagination. From the towering Nephilim in the Bible to the frost giants of Norse legends and the mighty titans of Greece, every ancient culture seemed to whisper the same thing, that once, long ago, enormous beings walked among us. But what if these weren't just stories? What if the myth of giants wasn't a myth at all? Imagine standing at the base of a mountain and realizing it's not a mountain at all, but the petrified remains of something that once lived. People online have been obsessed with that idea for years. Photos claiming to show giant skeletons, colossal footprints carved into stone, or ancient structures supposedly built by beings far larger than any human ever recorded. Most scientists dismiss them as misinterpretations, hoaxes, or clever illusions, but myths don't survive for thousands of years without a reason. Let's start with where this all began. In ancient Mesopotamia, the Sumerians told tales of massive beings called the Anunnaki, who descended from the heavens and shaped humanity. They weren't gods in the traditional sense, they were teachers, rulers, even engineers. Their descriptions were so vivid, so consistent, that some researchers began to wonder if these weren't gods of imagination, but memories of something real. And when you line up those Sumerian myths beside the stories of the Nephilim from the book of Genesis, the sons of God who came down to the daughters of men, you begin to see a pattern stretching across civilizations that never spoke to one another. Fast forward to ancient Greece. The poet Hesiod wrote about the Titans, enormous beings who ruled before the Olympian gods. Their war, the Titanomachy, was so cataclysmic it supposedly reshaped the earth itself. Volcanoes, earthquakes, and mountain ranges were said to be the aftermath of their fall. Sound familiar? Across the world, cultures linked geological wonders to the footsteps or bones of giants. What we call nature, they saw as evidence of something greater, something lost. But here's where it gets interesting. In 1877, a man named William Conyers stumbled upon what he claimed was a massive human skeleton in a coal mine in Ohio, reportedly over 3 meters tall. Newspapers exploded with the story, and soon similar discoveries were being reported everywhere from California to Turkey. Skeptics quickly pointed out that many of these skeletons were exaggerated, misidentified, or outright fakes. Yet even today, locals in places like Sardinia and the American Midwest swear that such remains existed, only to be quietly taken away by mysterious officials or lost in museum archives. So why do we keep returning to the idea of giants? Maybe because deep down we sense there's something we've forgotten. Science tells us that gigantic species once roamed the earth, the megatherium, the massive ground sloth that stood as tall as a bus, Gigantopithecus, an ape over 3 meters tall that once lived in Asia, and of course the dinosaurs themselves. Humanity lived alongside megafauna for thousands of years. Could the legends of giants be echoes of those encounters, passed down through generations, reshaped into myth? There's another layer, though, the architecture. Across the world, from the Cyclopean walls of Mycenae to the megalithic stones of Baalbek in Lebanon, we see constructions so massive that even modern engineers struggle to explain how they were built. Some of these stones weigh hundreds of tons. So who or what moved them? Ancient builders with forgotten technologies, or someone bigger? Let's talk about Baalbek's famous Stone of the Pregnant Woman. It weighs over 1,000 tons. That's the weight of nearly 150 elephants. It's perfectly carved, perfectly placed, and aligned with astronomical precision. No tool marks, no explanation. Archaeologists say it was done with ramps and manpower. But imagine being a farmer 2,000 years ago, staring at that colossal rock and hearing the elders say, "It was the giants who built this." Would you have doubted them? Then there are the myths from the Pacific Islands, the Rapa Nui of Easter Island, who created the Moai statues. Local stories say those statues walked to their positions, guided by chance and power. Could those chants be memories of a time when people really were taller, stronger, and lived longer than we do now? In North America, indigenous tribes have legends of massive beings who once ruled the plains. The Choctaw tell of a race of giants called the Nahulo, who were wiped out by great floods and fire from the sky. The Paiute people speak of the Sitaka, red-haired giants who lived in caves and terrorized their ancestors. Skeptics say it's all symbolism stories to teach moral lessons, but every now and then someone finds something strange in the dirt. A jawbone too big, a femur too thick. Most turn out to belong to large animals, but some don't quite fit neatly into the boxes of scientific classification. It's easy to laugh off the idea of giants as fantasy. But here's the twist: evolution did produce massive hominids. Gigantopithecus, discovered through fossilized teeth and bones, was a giant ape that may have stood up to 3 meters tall and weighed half a ton. It disappeared roughly 300,000 years ago, but what if it didn't vanish overnight? Could early humans have encountered it, feared it, and turned it into legend? And it's not just size. The Neanderthals were shorter but much stronger than us, capable of feats we'd find superhuman today. There's even emerging genetic evidence that traces of their DNA still live in us. Maybe the giants weren't towering behemoths, but simply a stronger, more powerful kind of human, remembered in awe and passed down through myth. As archaeology and genetics evolve, the line between myth and memory keeps blurring. What once sounded impossible, dragons, floods, lost cities, has in some cases turned out to be based on truth. Fossilized dinosaur bones could easily have inspired tales of dragons. Ancient floods around 10,000 years ago could explain Noah, Deucalion, and Gilgamesh. So when ancient people said giants once walked the earth, maybe they weren't wrong, just poetic. Modern science continues to dig deeper, uncovering clues that suggest our ancestors were far more advanced and far more observant than we have given them credit for. They looked at the bones of extinct creatures, saw their sheer scale, and crafted stories to explain them. But maybe, just maybe, they were also remembering, not just imagining. And here's the most fascinating part. Across all these myths, giants weren't just monsters. They were teachers, warriors, kings, sometimes even gods. They symbolized the connection between heaven and earth, strength and wisdom, the divine and the mortal. When they fell, the world changed. Mountains rose, oceans flooded, and humanity began again, smaller, weaker, but wiser. So did giants once walk the earth? Maybe not the way legends say, but something lived that inspired every civilization on the planet to tell the same story. And that's the part that gives you chills, the idea that maybe the real mystery isn't whether giants existed, but how every culture, separated by oceans and centuries, remembered them. Because sometimes myths are just history we don't yet understand.